There we go. Hey guys. Well, I'm gonna be doing like a bit of explaining on my brushes here because a lot of people have asked, and I've always been of the mind that um, you should be kind of building your own tools only to familiarize yourself with what you're doing. But I also understand that sometimes just being able to access something and having a good idea of what someone who draws all the time would build for themselves can also be pretty helpful at giving you an idea of what you should be aiming for. So I'm going to just kind of show off and keep in mind, guys, my brushes are not in any kind of sorted order right now. And actually, I think I'm going to move this. I think I can move it. Move. Oh, I gotta do edit scene. Yeah, like these brushes, I'm going to make them available on the store and to Patreon supporters, but these brushes do not function in any kind of they just get built and I don't sort them, and then it's not a good practice. I know, and I don't name them properly, and there's multiple variations that all seem very alike. This is one of the reasons I sell the brush dumps really cheap, because they're just completely non-functional in many ways, in the sense that there's just no rhyme or reason. So I'm going to just kind of maybe blow down the list here, starting with the first one on the right, and this is the tool I use for sketching a lot of the time because it has some benefits. First benefit is that it's really faded and light, so that I can draw nice round shapes and non-specific shapes. What that means is it's not hyper detailed, so I'm not getting lost in detail. I can just kind of build ideas and concepts very plain, like very blobby shapes, and not get all into the details. But what's also nice about this tool is that if you make it small, you can still get into some details. And if you erase with it, you can still get some nice shading with it. And I actually use this tool a lot for ambient and shading. So let's say I'm trying to do like some shadows. Actually, it's kind of splotchy, but you can always come in and fix that later with another tool. But you can just come in and actually just shade dark spots that aren't lit by light. Ambient shadows or ambient occlusion is done pretty easily with this tool. I'm just going to use this other brush here to just get some sharper. But essentially, you can just kind of build your ambient occlusion with this. So it's not exactly an airbrush, and it's not exactly a pretty solid brush, but in any case, I use it to sketch really blobbily. I used to use my marker tool all the time, and I used it for a long ass time, this marker tool. Just draw, you build your marker, blah blah blah. I used to be big into using that marker for super duper long. And it's fine. Although this marker specifically is made to be blendy, so it has super duper lots of functions. You can draw with it, you can sketch with it, you can paint with it, and you can even blend with it if you so choose. It's one of those multifunctional brushes. But let's just go back up to the top here. And here we go. For some reason, this one's here. This is an inker. This is basically an inker I've been using a lot of, and it's just a more solid version of the previous brush, less faded, and we should really. Let me see if I can have some line art that isn't adult based that I can sketch for you guys on top of. Let's take a quick look. Sketches. How far down do I have to go to find that stuff, huh? Know what I'm saying? Maybe this will help. So let's blot that out. So this brush here kind of just functions like I was explaining here. Let's get that even lighter. And it's kind of nice. I always make it a little bigger than I want, and then kind of work in its mid-range. So I'm not. This is the 100%, and this is the low. So I'm kind of working at the 50% range. And it's just got a nice soft look to it, and because it's soft, you actually have to kind of press pretty lightly to get any kind of range on it, which is fun because as I've inked more and more, the lighter I ink, the more I feel I have a better grasp of inking. So the more you can just kind of just graze the surface and do your work, the better, I think. So then the next one is actually very similar to the first one I was showing you guys, but it's just a little harder. But you can actually ink with this as well, but it's kind of like a middle ground between the two. You can shade as well with it. This comes in, I'm going to tell you, I almost always explicitly use this to give like a painted white edge to stuff, but it can be used for anything. Let's see if we can get this to be black or a dark color here. And if I go up here and I use this, you can see it's just got like a bit of a texture to it, so it's not perfectly sharp, and it blends in to you can really kind of control how light and dark it is, so you can go from light to dark and stuff like that. So let's move back here. This is literally the standard inker. You know what this is all about. You've seen and experienced this many times, although I actually think this is a tweaked version of it. Yeah, it's mildly tweaked so that it's not too sharp, I think, because I didn't like how sharp the original one was. This is one of my inkers that I've been using a lot of. It's basically like if you were inking with a marker that wasn't 100% full of ink. And I like it. I like it that it's got a little fine texture on it. It's got a little crisp edge to it. It's got a lot of energy, and it doesn't feel. It doesn't feel flat, and it does what it needs to do. It's great for eyelashes and eyes, like this. You know, it's pretty much built for that. I didn't specifically build it for that reason, but if you wanted to, there it is. Then you've got my soft inker, and this really, the only reason I have this is so that I can ink really small. Let's say I have a really thin small object, or I have something that is low resolution. This thing will ink at a microscopic detail. Here you go. Here you can see microscopic lines being laid down. This is not something I normally use. I am not a person who gets into details that much. But if ever you wanted the thinnest fucking lines, here you go. Sorry if there's any parents listening. The kid's just trying to learn how to use brushes, and this guy doesn't know how to stop swearing. And there it is. Ink is an older inker I used to use. It's really a holdover from a previous method I inked. I keep it because it's good for calligraphy style stuff, because it has a good termination point. As you can see, a termination point is like when you stop and turn and change direction. It doesn't have like a weird sharp edge. It just feels like a good, nice shape. You know, I'm not really good at calligraphy either, so it's not that something I'd use, but you can see the range you get out of it. And then you got eraser and erasing medium. I don't know if I still need an erasing medium. I use it because it's nice. Like, it's just a sharp and soft eraser. This is an old ass brush I used to use all the time. I would say almost 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it's kind of noisy, but if your drawing's a little bigger, you don't see that texture, and it's good for, you can really get in some nice hatch details and some soft, subtle lines with this thing, while still kind of building, you know, normal lines. Selection tool I use quite often to do all my work. I've actually shortcutted the selection tool here, so it works pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. This is probably an experimental tool. I think it's just too, I have to press too hard to use it. Maybe I just need to increase the density. I wanted something where I could detail little white flecks on skin, and it's never really hit that level I wanted. Maybe if it's, I think it's when it's small it works. Yeah, it works when it's small. When it's larger it fades more. Yeah, you know, this might still be good. If I want. You can see if you can do that sort of spackling on skin. And this tool I use a lot, actually use it tons and tons and tons for shading recently, because it's good for getting the hard value. I'll show you. It's good for getting a color value. Oh, that's a really crazy color to be working on. And then you can throw in a really strong value, but you can still kind of blend that in really decently. You know, things can look nice, nice and blended. And it does blending and the actual color layer down at the same time, so it might work for you. Airbrush is exactly what you think it is. Although this, I literally haven't seen this used or seen this brush. Maybe it's just moved. This just seems like, yeah, this is an older ass airbrush I've never used in a while, but you're free to use it if you think it's going to be good. Keep trying to go there. Hello, yes. So it's just a super duper soft airbrush. All my airbrushes have noise to them. You can see it with this one too. And they have non-similar noise because this way there's no weird dithering happening or banding. Sorry, there's dithering happening, so there's no banding. And you know what banding is when there's like the sharp color differences across multiple values. So we don't ever want that. So all my very soft brushes have dithering on them to almost eliminate all those issues. Just 1 second. Next here, let's take a look. Airbrush, texture soft. I've got some, basically a lot. It's just kind of screen tone, but you can also blend with it. I don't know. I'm still kind of futzing around with this, and there's just a stronger version of this later down in the line. It's kind of interesting. Same thing with this one here. It lets you add kind of a dithered screen tone effect. You decide how you want to use that, because I haven't yet. Soft, this is just another kind of soft brush, but you can also, if you erase with it, you can blend. So it kind of blends in. You can get some nice smooth tones from that. We've got this thing, I don't know. I think this is just a holdover. I'm just afraid of getting rid of it. I haven't used it in a long time. Same thing with this one, although I find this is pretty decent for blending colors. And here's my standard airbrush as well. What's blenders? I got some blending stuff. Actually, I might gonna need some colors to show you this. Just real quick like. Let's get some color variations. So they're basically all the same. They kind of function the same. They just let you blend colors like that with some stippling. This one is finer grain. This one is a coarser grain. And this one is the middle grain. So you just got varying degrees of grain to blend with, depending on what you want to do. Look at that color contrast. And if you come here and you just kind of blend that, you can kind of blend it in like this, and then grab the tool and then kind of go at it again. So that corner kind of just does those four things. Then I got Blend Blur, which is a pretty soft tool, and its only goal is to just blend things to put them out of focus, like a soft focus. And Knife. This is both a good, it's actually a really decent blender, because I actually don't believe in really abusing just not generic, non-directional blenders. I think if you're going to blend, you should be blending in a direction. Regardless, it's good for hairs and shines and so forth, but you can do blending and other things with it. And you can always come in later and you know, soften it all up if you want. Tone and Tonair are kind of just custom built for some toning stuff I was doing. So they don't really serve a purpose unless you're using a texture. You have to use, what is it? Paint effect, carbon texture. There you go, you can see it being applied there. It's just basically brushes built to draw those texture effects or erase them. So that's all that is. What's next here? Comic Dark. So this is an interesting brush. It's one of those, works completely different on non-alpha than it does on alpha. I keep it because it's the darkest brush I have if I really want to accent something. But it has an interesting behavior on something that's already painted. It's very light, and you can really do some neat details without erasing what's already there with this brush. So I kind of like it, so I leave it. I come to it sometimes. Comic Soft. This is just from my old comic set when I used to do a lot more pony stuff. You'll probably recognize it. It looks like this. These are the three. Soft Sketch I've had for a long ass time, and it just kind of, I never use it directly, but I think I use it a lot to do cell shading, but I don't really use it to ink or anything. It's kind of like an accessory tool. Pencil is like an old inker I used to have that I'm not ready to give up yet, so it just kind of, it inks with some grain to it. Looks nice. These are my new brushes you guys have probably seen me use often. They're flat. They have sharp edges. I did the Hextech comic with it, and this one too. This one I sketch with, and Ink Sharp. These three are pretty common sets I use now. They feel kind of like pencils. These four brushes here, pencil, 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 pencil. They're actually really fine. Actually, someone might really like them. I keep hold of them because I'm trying to do something with them, but I'm not quite sure what I'm doing with them yet. I think I was inking it. The problem is that every comic I make, I create a whole set of brushes for it. So These four, I think they're just more and more light. I don't know. You guys have fun with those. I don't really use them much, but they're pretty neat. Ink Sharp here. This is just a great, nice, soft inker if you don't want things to be too dark. You can make them pretty big. A lot of my brushes work great large as well. This is actually not a mistake. I actually like my brushes to function between the ranges of 5 to 50. So here my brush is at 8. Looks fine. Here it is at 50. And it looks different, but it still works well. It doesn't look all blah or whatever. And the same for this brush. When it's large, it's softer, and when it's smaller, it's just blacker. But it still behaves like a brush I'd want to use. This is just more versions of the same brush I'm using. I get attached to a certain way it behaves, and I don't want to edit the value, so I just make a new one. So I end up having a bunch of the same brushes until I get frustrated and I throw some out, or the magic is gone, I guess. Ink Sharp, same deal. It's just the same version of Ink Sharp, but this one has texture on it. So this is the original one. This is the one that's lighter with some texture. This is just a blending brush that I'm using. These two. One is it blends with screen tone, and this one just blends as a straight up everyday blender. And you can actually see the banding here that drives me bonkers. So I try not to use this too much, or I just go over with another one of my brushes or my blenders and blend that out or airbrush it out. What else here we got? These two brush sets are actually really, the Comic Streak and brush down here. These two, these two. I use them for hatching a lot. They have a nice pencil-y feel to them. As you can see, they really feel good. Here's another one I really like that I built recently and I use a lot for sketching. It is just grainy as hell, so some of you might not like it, but it works great for what I want to use it for. Stumpy works cool too, depending on what you want to do. I find it works nicer when it's large and thick, and I like to sketch with it. Comic Soft is just an old brush, so I just don't have the heart to get rid of. Does some nice inking with it, so just go ahead and use it if you want a nice soft inker that's kind of mushy. That's it for that. And then we just got the bottom, which is just a ton of marker tools, I think, although there's one inking tool down here that's just works like 3 other of my other inking tools, but hey, it's a non-organized mishmash. I got my marker tools. The marker tool I use pretty often is this one. I use it to paint, and I use it to just shade in values. I've got this one here I like recently because it's got a point to it. Sometimes I just have marker tools from projects and I forgot to get, I think this is one of them. Here, these two inkers are the ones I inked a bunch of comics with. Flirty and a bunch of others. These are the tools I used for that. You'll probably recognize it if you've seen those comics. They just look like this. They're kind of, they're basically a watercolor tool with just some minor accents to them. There's this thing here. I don't know why I have this. I don't use it anymore, but it's good to kind of blend up color sometimes when I need to have a non-uniform background. And it's literally the only tool I have that's textured, so I leave it in the mix. And that's about it. So that's me kind of running really pretty fast through that list. And to be quite fair, I mean, if I really had to break down the function and use of each one of these brushes, it'd be even longer. So I might do that for some of my more specific ones. What I'm thinking of doing is isolating the ones I use the most and kind of doing a quick kind of walkthrough of what I'm thinking when I'm using them and why I like the way they function, and hopefully that'll give you guys a better insight on building your own tools, and then using the ones I'm providing you, as well as Patreon supporters or as someone who's purchased some of the brushes. All right, thanks guys.